I'm going to take my seat next to my learned colleagues and friends from JoziMyJozi. If I may, if this chair doesn't collapse under my enormous weight, what I'd like to do is just take a moment to introduce to you JoziMyJozi. Can I quickly get a show of hands? Have you heard of JoziMyJozi? If you have, put your hand up. Oh, okay, well, we've got some work to do there.
Yeah,
we've got
I see.
Well, where have you been? As Bia would say to you, probably under a rock somewhere. But really good that some of you have heard of JoziMyJozi. It is a movement. Back in the early 1970s, if you think back to the early 1970s, not in Johannesburg, but in New York on Manhattan Island, at the beginning of the 1970s, there was a major concern that Manhattan and New York was being lost. It was being taken over by mafia gangs. Buildings were hijacked. Infrastructure was being destroyed and not repaired. And in 1977, the I Love New York campaign was launched. How many of you have got a t-shirt that has something, I love something on it? Anybody got one of those? Well, that brand is about to be 50 years old from New York. Our brand, JoziMyJozi, is a very new brand. Let me just show you a short video to give you the background to it.
This is Jozi, a city built by the people for the people, with a vibrant inner city life, a cultural melting pot of magic, the most powerful commercial center on the African continent. So, what does a city like this, with life flowing through its veins, know about decay, destruction, decline? You see, from the hardest times emerge the most purposeful ambitions. Finding gold in the darkest places runs generations deep. Equality, human dignity, and security is a right and inspires the design for the rescue of Jozi. JoziMyJozi is a movement for the people, by the people, enabling the future by creating sustainable precincts, building on and reflecting the heritage of Johannesburg for the next generation of city dwellers, innovators, and visitors. Jozi, a city with a legacy connecting with its future. A Jozi that is economically boosted, inspires inclusive growth. A Jozi that is digitally interconnected, arouses the world stage. This is Jozi, the heartbeat of South Africa's people, attracting creative talent, development, and opportunity. This is JoziMyJozi, a city built by the people, for the people. By you, for you. Join us, JoziMyJozi.
So, Bia, you're actually the CEO of JoziMyJozi, the not-for-profit entity that has been established. Tell us a little bit about JoziMyJozi.
Okay, guys, JoziMyJozi came about 2 years ago when the initiative started. How are we going to turn around the inner city of Johannesburg? I don't have to tell you guys what's wrong with Johannesburg. We face it every single day. We experience it in our homes and in our businesses. But if we look at where we are now and we want to look at where we can go, how can we take the city that we all love so much? How can we change it to be the true city that reflects the gold that is our people? Because that's what makes Jozi so special, is we the people. So that's where it all started. From that initiative of how can we change the city around, a number of corporates came together. It is including universities, property developers, and landowners. What can we do to change our city around? And how can we engage with the city council that is they are very visible, but we need them to be invisible. And we, the people, needs to be the visible ones, changing our city around. So that's basically where JoziMyJozi started, the initiative. How do we bring hope back to a city that we all love? How can we inspire people to take ownership of their city and change what we've got into a beautiful gem? So I think a long process. We have signed up-to-date collaborative agreements with a number of corporates. All the big banks in the inner city are, I know some of you are represented here today. We've signed a collaborative agreement with the City Council of Johannesburg. We've signed collaborative agreements with the Gauteng province. And by doing all of that, to take us from where we are now to where we want to be, my opinion and the opinion of everybody that you basically speak to is we have to do this together. It has to be a true collaborative effort to take where we are now to where we want to be.
It's a massive undertaking. Johannesburg, but maybe again, if I could ask the audience, when were you last in the CBD? Recently, anybody been recently in the CBD? So a small number, yeah, a small number in the audience in here. It's not in a great state of repair at the moment. A massive, massive undertaking to turn around. Are you a glutton for punishment? Are you serious that you want to take this on?
I am actually. So a passion for me is just not to stagnate. You cannot afford that. You can also not, if you want to be part of South Africa, let's take it smaller, in your little precinct where you're living, where you're working, and where you're staying. You can't afford to not get involved. If you want to be accountable for what happens and you want to make a difference, you need to get involved. So for me, when the opportunity came up, first I was a little bit apprehensive. I mean, are you kidding me? Going to the inner city of Joburg, that was a horrifying idea. So the first time I went into the inner city in a very long time, I went there in a full bulletproof vehicle with 2 bodyguards. I subsequently found out it is actually incredible. The inner city is so vibrant. It is incredible the way that the communities have organized themselves. They just need some assistance with all of the infrastructure issues that they're experiencing. So for me, and then have being an accountant against me because I love interacting with people. That is, and I make eye contact. That's the weirdest thing. So for interacting with people, whether they are street vendors, whether they are residents, whether they are corporates, the city council, doesn't matter. It's motivating everybody to make a difference. Right, so, yeah, gotcha. Incredible.
Wonderful. So, Nkuli, what's motivated you to get involved with JoziMyJozi?
Interesting, Adam. So I come from the tech background, right? 25 years in this space, and I grew up in Johannesburg. Loved the city. I used to walk the streets of the city. I believe there's no place like Joburg. Like some or most of us have traveled to a number of countries around the world. Nothing is like home and nothing is like Joburg. And at some point, I realized that I've got 3 kids in private school, I've got medical aid, I've got private security, and yet half my money is going somewhere and to tax, and it's meant to pay for the services. And we were not getting the services. The administration was just collapsing, in front of our eyes. And I decided to roll up my sleeves and get shit done.
He got a
and
point.
Go in there. and I took a very unpopular decision against my wife's will to get into politics. And not because I'm a politician, because I said, look, let me roll up my sleeves and just go do it myself. Because if you don't do it, we don't have a city, we don't have a country. Jozi contributes about 15% to our GDP. If we let Joburg collapse, the country's going to collapse, and our kids are not going to have a future. And I got into politics. I found my way to becoming MMC for economic development. In that 1 year that we were under Miyampo Palazzo, we really worked hard. The inner city was the core of my function. I worked very hard to try and reclaim it. One of the things we did was to implement the informal trade policy, just to make sure that you regulate the informal trading space, make sure that our people make more money, and it's clean, it's attractive, you can attract investment and so on. Unfortunately, we couldn't finish our term. And then and then fate got me into JoziMyJozi. So for me, it's a passion, really. It's not a job. It says that I'm an ordinary South African, I'm an ordinary Joburger, and if I don't do anything about it, no one's going to do anything about it. So I think it's really just to inspire others like us to say, let's get up and go do it. you know.
Fantastic.
Yep.
Fantastic. Well, maybe just to rewind the tape, if I may, to the kernel of how did JoziMyJozi come about, the initiation. And there are other members of the JoziMyJozi leadership team that are not with us today, and a growing community of businesses and citizens in Johannesburg that are involved. But one of those is Robbie Brosen, the founder of Nando's. And I'm very delighted and privileged to serve alongside Robbie on the Wits Business School Advisory Board. And about 3 years ago, when Anglo American made the decision to pull out of the CBD, if you remember, they have about 100,000 square meters of office space in Marshalltown. Absolutely beautiful, amazing office space. But they made the decision to pull out. And the leadership of Anglo American came to Wits and offered the facilities to Wits University. And Robbie and I were asked to evaluate the feasibility of that. And when we sat down with the leadership team of Anglo American, and with the greatest of respect, you'll know that this is a 107-year-old institution. It's a bit like having a meeting with the leadership of a small country. They are very institutionalized, prim and proper, very formal. And Robbie and I were sitting in front of them, and he basically said to the leadership of Anglo American, if you abandon the CBD, Johannesburg is fucked, he said. And as he said it, I saw the leadership team of Anglo American kind of look back for a moment. Oh, and he said, oh no, my chair is not feeling, feels a bit fucked actually. But he then said several times, using the same explanation, that Nando's, if you know where their headquarters is in Lawrenceville, that when Nando's was going through their own decision about where they should have their headquarters, they concluded that if they left Johannesburg, they would be leaving their heart behind. And they made a commitment to establishing and building out their headquarters in Lawrenceville. Next door to that, you may have been to Victoria Yards, which is just an amazing center in terms of small business enterprise and other organizations. So a very serious message was delivered in a way that only Robbie can generally get away with, but he essentially said, we have to do something about this. So since we've formed JoziMyJozi,
Yes.
what are the key areas of focus that have been prioritized?
Okay. I think if you speak to people from the inner city, everybody is very clear. Safety and security is a #1 priority, where we need to find a solution or some progress to make it a safe city. If we look at safety and security, I include there a clean city, because that's the very next thing that come up. So safety and security key for us as a focus area, and a number of projects that we're running in that specific work stream. We're looking at the social side of Johannesburg. It is usually that elephant in the room that nobody wants to speak to, is all the destitute people and the homeless people living on the streets of Johannesburg. Finding a solution for that, finding a strategy, working with all the NGOs, working with the city, with the province, etc., to get a strategy to address our social issues. We're looking at education, where we need to focus on early childhood development. We need to look at care facilities, after-school facilities, to get the kids off the street where they get exposed to elements that we would prefer them not to be involved in, putting it mildly. So education for us, making sure that there's a sound foundation for the next generation to get the right education right from the start. We're looking at the commercial side, where we need to be really serious about bringing business back to the inner city. Not necessarily corporates. It could be SMMEs, manufacturing, assembling, doesn't matter. We need jobs back in Joburg. So we need to find a way to work with them, with the City Council and with Treasury to look at special economic zones and industrial economic zones and all kinds of sorts so we can encourage business to come back to the inner city. Job creation, job creation, job creation. And then the fifth pillar that we are focusing on is arts and culture. And included in that is sports. Joburg used to be the hub of activities. You wanted to go to a festival or a concert or a market. That's where you went to Joburg. There's nothing left, very little in fact. Every now and again there's some acupuncture point springing up that is incredible. So we have to bring that vibeness back to Joburg. Make it fun again. Make sure that there's festivals, that it's vibrant, that there's creativity that you can see. People, there's so many artists in the inner city with incredible talent. Give them the platform to display that. And then obviously the sports. We also need to have rugby festivals and Springbok matches and kids being able to play soccer and basketball after school where we know it's a safe environment. So those are our 5 focus areas that we're busy with.
Thanks, Bia. And Nkuli, you've got a particular interest and focus on the commercial pillar that's there. Maybe just give us a flavour of what's involved there and what we're looking at.
Yeah, absolutely. So the commercial stream looks at how to attract investment and engage with big business. But the big part of it is the property sector. You may notice that one of the biggest problems that we've got in Joburg is dilapidated and hijacked buildings. And it is a hive of crime, illegality, and all sorts of things wrong that you can imagine. And the idea really is to work with the city, expropriate dilapidated, abandoned, hijacked buildings through a process that they have got in place with the group forensics, and support the city in releasing those properties to the private sector. And working with the private sector to convert those into multi-use, multi-purpose use buildings. And the idea as well is to build precincts and to ultimately connect precincts by theme and build a walkable network. You know, and once you pedestrianize that, then you can start to bring an element of safety and belonging into that space. And so some of the initiatives that we're working on is with big property owners, the city itself, some of the Heritage Foundation, and a number of entities that are invested in the inner city. And the objective that is to make sure that we then create this win-win platform that ensures that we can reinvest in the city and make it livable. You know, we've got a situation where we've got the old 1950s spatial planning, where somebody that lives in Soweto and works in Rosebank is going to take 2 taxis to get to work. And somebody earns 4,000 rand, they spend 1,400 rand on transport. We're saying, no, we can build affordable housing units within the inner city. So if you can make it livable, then you kill 2 birds with 1 stone. You know, they put more money into their pockets, but also you give them dignity of ownership of property. So we've got a number of initiatives that we are driving around that. And I think if we tackle property in itself and you make it livable, then you start to support the element of safety around it. So very important for us.
Fantastic. Yep. And Bia, I've heard in meetings in Anglo-American that focus on JoziMyJozi, there's often this terminology behind us that is used affectionately.
Yes.
Around getting shit done, because there's a lot of shit in Johannesburg at the moment. But as we've been sitting here, there's been a series of slides that have been working with pictures of, I think the Nelson Mandela Bridge is about to come up and others. Just tell us a little bit about some of the initiatives and some of the impact that we've had already.
Okay, great. So a special one was the Nelson Mandela Bridge. That was actually our first project that we focused on in collaboration with the city. That's a beacon of hope for Joburg. It was the moment they erected that bridge. It's such a special bridge. So absolutely went to ruin. None of the lights worked. The glass panels were all vandalized or shattered. The road surfaces were terrible. So bridge was a very, very dangerous place. You couldn't really find that students or even pedestrians were crossing from the Breer Street taxi rank to the Wit side. Anyway, that was our first project, to show and put the beacon of light. It was very much in the midst of load shedding back then. So we had to put the light and shine the light on Joburg to say what we could do. So I'm proud to say there's solar lights on the bridge, so the bridge is never ever dark. The color lights went up, so we can change the colors of the lights to reflect anything that's happening in the city and to show our support. We didn't stop at the bridge though. And all the glass panels were replaced and fixed. So the bridge is brand new. It looks incredible. We continued with the rollout of the solar lights, meaning removing all of the current city power street lights that doesn't work anyway, and putting solar lights in there, contributing to green economy, saving on the carbon footprint, etc. We have to date rolled out more than 400 solar lights following a specific route along the walkable network. We had an amazing Mandela Day last week with over 4,000 people who joined us from the corporate sector, from the city itself, from the Gauteng government to say, we need to do this as one. We have to collaborate if we're going to do anything in Joburg. We cleaned up Hillbrow, which is one of the worst places that you could find in Joburg, to show the people, even the residents in Hillbrow, that although most people have put a ring around Hillbrow, a big red ring to say don't go in there, it's an absolute slum, we haven't forgotten about them. If we can save the inner city of Joburg and we can make a real difference in Hillbrow, then there's nothing stopping us from changing South Africa around. So JoziMyJozi is, for now, we're testing our proof of concepts in the inner city, working with all of the community improvement districts, etc., making a real change in safety and security, by the way. So you can look at the statistics in the inner city. Definitely the statistics are coming down from a crime perspective. But if we can get it right in the inner city and then expand it and let it be a contagious movement, that's the whole idea behind JoziMyJozi. It's not a marketing campaign, it's a movement. Everybody needs to get on board and change our city for the better. We roll it out to the other cities. We go to Kimberley, we go to Bloemfontein. In the end, we can turn around South Africa, but we have to start somewhere, and we chose Jozi.
Fantastic. Oh. And Kuli, we've also seen pictures of gateways in Johannesburg that have been rotating around here. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, so I think the idea is to do this on a block-by-block basis. And look, we're trying to eat an elephant, but you've got to eat it in small chunks. And we identify strategic sites around the city for redevelopment, for beautification, that are theme-specific. And when they're theme-specific, then they attract a particular crowd and audience around that particular place. So with the Gateways project, it's really just to identify where is it that we can catalyze the work that we need to do in the city. You know, we see ourselves as a super catalyst, and for that to happen, it's really just small steps. And that is driven around our Gateways project, that ultimately it'll interconnect into one super connected, kind of a precinct-driven environment. And I think it's important that as we see ourselves as a catalyst, it's really a call for volunteers and business to join us and support us. I think today, to be quite honest, JoziMyJozi is probably the single most connected organization across the board for business, for volunteers. So if you ever wanted to do something but didn't know how to start because there are silos, this is the platform to do it. Because within here is where we've got traction and we've got scale and we've got mass to be able to bring this transformation.
I just want to add, seeing the pictures rolling on the screen there, and I see the clock has gone red, but you guys just bear with me. So what has happened as well, due to the actions from JoziMyJozi and the difference that we've managed to make, is that the Maorishi Institute moved into one of Anglo's buildings. Anglo gifted that to them. There's now 5,000 students in the inner city of Joburg, and that itself creates a vibrant atmosphere. Wits has agreed to move across the bridge and take up one of the other offices in the Anglo precinct. So there's another 1,500 students right in the inner city of Joburg. That itself signals that there's going to be a change and there's going to be progress, and we are super excited about that. Students trigger the businesses that follow students. So watch this space. Get out from under your rocks. Go Google JoziMyJozi, see where you can get involved, and join us. Let's make this world a better place.
Yeah. Bia and Kuli, I mean, I think it's really inspiring. I hope that you are interested to have a look. Just take a look at the website, as Bia says, and encourage your companies to get involved too. Because as Nkuli says, if we allow Johannesburg to go, then that's an absolute disaster. So thank you so much for joining us at GESHIDOCon and being
Philip.
part of our panel here today. Really
Only
great
a
to have
pleasure.
you here.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kuli.
We're being asked, BS is suggesting, are there any questions?
Any questions from the audience? 2 questions we can put in.
I just want to know, how do you stop the vandalism? So you've rebuilt the bridge, you've put in the solar lights. Surely there's still, a lot of work to do to actually change that almost culture, for the lack of a better word. What are you currently doing to actually stop that from actually reoccurring?
Okay. Thank you for that question. I should have said that right from the start. All of the projects that we're focusing on has to be resilient and it has to be sustainable. So we are not engaging on any of the projects if we can't guarantee this. There's no time and there's no money to do what we're doing again. So on the bridge itself, there's now full-time securities, there's security cameras rolling out. We will be covering the whole of the inner city with security cameras to ensure that whatever happens in the inner city is protected. So I don't want to tempt fate, but to date, absolutely, and it's been months now, absolutely no incidents on any of the infrastructure that we've upgraded. It's a sense of pride. So the people who live in that environment, they now take care of it because it's a pride for them as well. And yeah, we're lucky like that, but we're rolling it out in a sustainable manner. Thanks.
There was another question, was there over there? Or?
I've got the mic coming up.
Hello.
Thank you. I'm actually just reminded that Saturdays used to be me and my mom. We take a taxi from Soweto and we go to Carlton Center just to have lunch, maybe at a Chicken Licken or a KFC. It used to be the it. You dress up and be nice. That was the days when Jozi was safe. So my question is, how do we plan to bring back, your hotels, like that one that was in a small street that closed? That is also a way of bringing back our tourists so that they can come and see our country and bring back, push up the economy. How do we plan to bring back those businesses, the bigger businesses, because you find most of them, they closed and they left.
Maybe I can take that. So there's a couple of approaches to it. One part is legislative, and is you would have seen what's coming up in the Gauteng provincial government in terms of enforcing bylaws in the city and putting a lot more effort in bylaw enforcement and ensuring that businesses that operate there have got permits. And we support that initiative. But from our end, it's to drive the strategy of a special economic zone in the inner city. And that special economic zone in the inner city is focused on small businesses, which then says that once it's declared as an SEZ, there are various tax incentives for small businesses to operate within the inner city. So therefore, on the one side, there's the element of government doing its part in terms of enforcing bylaws. On the other side, we've got the safety and security pillar that ensures that we support and we create a safe space. And then the regulated space for the special economic zone. And once you do that, then you start to attract the right businesses into that particular area. So it's really a phased approach, but a multi-pronged approach, a multidisciplinary approach, working with the various private sector civil organizations as well as government. And so we're hoping that this strategy is what ultimately will make it a lot more attractive to come and live and work in Jozi, but also to be able to come and visit the inner city. And maybe another element that I've forgotten to mention is around tourism and designating specific theme-based tourism. And that's the next angle in terms of working with the city and the province to try and re-stimulate tourism back into the inner city and ensure that you've got the amenities that are needed And they are then in small pockets. When you think of Victoria Yards, for example, you think of Maboning and so on. The idea is now to draw all of that as one strategy around the inner city.
Thank you very much, guys. Let's give them a warm round of applause.